Do you know if just one couple lived happily ever after, Muzan would have won? Here are all the secret romances in Demon Slayer. Muzan and Rei. Believe it or not, Muzan was actually the perfect husband, and it's the Demon Slayers who ruined it for him. In chapter 13 of the manga, we got one of the earliest shockers in the series. We finally saw Muzan, and he was nothing like the Demon King we imagined. He wasn't surrounded by blood or fear. He was wearing a suit, living in the city, acting like a polite, loving husband. He had a wife, Rei, and a little daughter, living the life of a normal family man. And according to the Demon Slayer fanbook, that little girl wasn't even his. She was probably Rei's child from her previous marriage with a wealthy man. Based on how warm and affectionate the girl was with him, Muzan might have actually been a decent father too. The only problem was the real tragedy behind Rei's first husband. Muzan was the one who killed him. He took the man's life, stole his fortune, and then consoled the grieving widow until she became his next wife. And this wasn't Muzan's first time playing house. He'd been married 5 times, and every single one of his wives mysteriously disappeared. Just like Rei and her daughter did after Tanjiro exposed him. So, maybe if Tanjiro didn't show up that night, Muzan would have lived his best life as the most dangerous family man in anime history. In a way, Tanjiro had already started his revenge right then and there. Muzan destroyed the Kamado family, and Tanjiro made Muzan destroy his. Obanai and Mitsuri, the most tragic and at the same time most selfish relationship in the entire series, maybe even anime history. Obanai was one of those unsettling characters, the kind you admire for his strength but can't quite imagine falling in love. But then there was Mitsuri, the way she blushed every time he was nearby, and the way he got jealous whenever someone else talked to her. It was painfully obvious. Obanai even doubled Tanjiro's training and threatened him not to talk to her again, just because she said she enjoyed Tanjiro's company. Their love for each other was real, they just never took the next step, and that was mostly because of Obanai. Like most of the main characters, he had a tragic past. Because of his unique eyes, his family treated him like a curse. They even offered him as a sacrifice to the snake demon. So from the start, Obanai grew up never knowing what real love felt like. He became cynical about people, affection, everything. But according to the data book, he fell in love the moment he saw Mitsuri for the first time. The way she smiled at the smallest things, the way she talked, the way she treated everyone with kindness. It made him want to protect her from the ugliness he'd grown up in. Whenever people mocked Mitsuri for being ditzy or too cheerful, Obanai was the first to defend her. That's when his feelings started to show themselves, sometimes a little too strongly. Then came the final battle. Mitsuri was fatally wounded, and even when Obanai was already beaten and bleeding, he went to swing at Muzan again. After the fight, both were dying. Mitsuri had lost her arms, and Obanai's face was torn apart. He knew he wouldn't make it, so in the middle of that shattered battlefield, he finally confessed. He told her how much he loved the way she got excited over the tiniest things, food, flowers, even the sounds of birds, and how she made his cursed life feel normal. Mitsuri cried and told him the truth, that she'd loved him for a long time too, that even in the middle of chaos, being with him made her feel safe. As her last moment slipped away, she said, "When we're reborn as humans, you have to find me again and marry me." Obanai smiled, the happiest he'd ever been, and whispered, "Of course, next time I'll make sure you live a long, happy life." And they kept that promise. In their next lives, we see them running a restaurant together, finally happy. The only tragedy is that their happy ending came too late, and in a way it was Obanai's fault. He thought he was unworthy of Mitsuri, that loving her from a distance was protecting her, but love isn't protection, it's participation. And by deciding for her, he turned something pure into something painfully human, and in a way, selfish. Nezuko and Zenitsu, the only love story in Demon Slayer that sends the wrong message, by actually succeeding. Let me explain. This is one of the fan favorite couples. Zenitsu fell in love with Nezuko at first sight, and it quickly turned into obsession. From the very start, bro had one strategy: chase her until she gives up. And he did. To be fair, he was sincere about it. He overcame his fear of demons for her, brought her flowers, promised to take her to see them. Bro was ready for anything, to infiltrate that Kamado family tree by any means necessary. He was so in love that even in his sleep on the Mugen train, he dreamed of Nezuko, and it was exactly the kind of dream you'd expect. It was pretty one-sided for most of the story, but after Nezuko conquered the sun and started speaking again, things changed. When Zenitsu asked her to marry him, she gave a faint, flustered smile. Her first real blush, actually. That was a turning point. After the final battle, Zenitsu stuck with Nezuko and Tanjiro, and in the epilogue, we saw their descendants, basically confirming they tied the knot. Zenitsu finally got the girl, but if you think about it, if Zenitsu wasn't the cool swordsman, or the good guy, or the comic relief, bro was basically a borderline psycho. In the modern world, that approach gets you a restraining order, not a wife. So if you ever take Zenitsu's strategy as inspiration, don't. Tanjiro and Kanao. Their love story feels less like romance and more like emotional rehab. It's like they didn't fall for each other, they just couldn't help ending up together. Both of them started at the final selection, when they tried to become demon slayers. At that point, they barely interacted, and the first time they did, Kanao was almost ready to kill him and Nezuko. It wasn't her fault, she was just doing her duty as a demon slayer, and Nezuko was still a demon. Luckily, the headquarters ordered her to bring them in alive. We properly met Kanao later, when Tanjiro was sent to the Butterfly Mansion to recover. During treatment, he kept challenging her to spar again and again, slowly breaking through that emotionless hell. She didn't show it then, but the moment he said goodbye changed everything. Tanjiro noticed her strange habit, tossing a coin to make decisions, and he made the final toss for her. For Kanao, that was the first time someone had ever cared about what she wanted. It wasn't just kindness, it was permission to feel, to choose, to live for herself. She didn't show the effect immediately, but it stayed with her. Later, when Tengen tried to take the girls from Butterfly Mansion, Kanao didn't need a coin to stand up to him. By then, she'd already found her voice. In chapter 99, when Tanjiro woke up from a 2-month coma, Kanao was waiting, and we saw one of her rare emotional moments. She told him she was glad he woke up. And when Tanjiro almost turned into a demon, Kanao, with one eye gone, risked her life to bring him back. Still, outside of those moments, there's barely any sign of romance. Tanjiro never really showed anything beyond his usual kindness, and Kanao's love seemed born out of gratitude and healing. In the end, they ended up together, but it never felt like a love story, more like two broken hearts that fit because no one else could understand their pain. Akaza and Koyuki. Akaza's redemption isn't just one of the most tragic moments in Demon Slayer. It might actually explain how Nezuko was able to control herself as a demon. Before Akaza became the donut-making martial arts demon we know today, he was just a boy named Hakuji, a kid dealt the worst hand in life. He lost his parents early, until a kind martial arts master with a sickly daughter took him in. For the first time, Hakuji had a home. The master loved him so much he even promised his daughter's hand to him. But one day, when Hakuji left to visit his father's grave, a rival dojo poisoned their well, killing Koyuki and her father. When Hakuji returned and saw their bodies, he had the most human reaction possible. With his bare hands, he slaughtered the entire rival dojo. It was rage, grief, and love all burning together. Proof that he cared for her more than anything in the world. After Muzan turned him into a demon, that same love didn't vanish. It twisted, but it stayed. Unlike most demons, Akaza never targeted the innocent. He didn't torture or play mind games. He just fought. Even in the chaos of his new life, he still admired fireworks, though he no longer remembered why. When he died standing, in his martial arts stance. That final image said everything about him. Discipline, pride, and love that refused to rot away. And maybe that's the answer to why Akaza was different. Why he didn't lose his honor, and why Nezuko didn't lose her humanity. Because even for these demons, if their emotions were strong enough, they don't just disappear. For Akaza it was love. For Nezuko it was family. And that's why both of them, even as demons, still felt human. Uta and Yoriichi. The one relationship that if it worked out, Muzan would have won. In chapter 186, we get a glimpse of Yoriichi's past life. After leaving home, he met Uta, a girl who had lost her family to an epidemic. She was broken, hollow, and drowning in grief. Yoriichi became her light. Together they built a home full of warmth. After 10 peaceful years they married, and Uta was expecting their first child. For once, Yoriichi seemed content to live as a husband, not a warrior. One day he went out, and by the time he reached home, Uta and their unborn child were gone, killed by a demon. That was the moment everything changed. The gentleman who wanted nothing more than a family lost everything he loved in an instant. And from that heartbreak, the strongest swordsman in history was born. Yoriichi's grief became his breathing. His rage became his technique. He soon became every demon's nightmare, especially Muzan's. He nearly wiped them all out, and his legacy shaped the entire Demon Slayer core. If that one demon hadn't killed his family, Yoriichi would have never picked up the sword. He would have lived and died a quiet man, and Muzan could have lived forever. Tengen and his 3 wives, Hinatsuru, Makio, and Suma, the most selfish, contractual, and loveless relationship in the entire series. Tengen Uzui was born into a secret ninja clan, run by brutal, outdated rules. His father raised him through merciless training. Tengen even had to kill 2 of his siblings before realizing what kind of monster that training was turning him into. Disgusted by his clan's cruelty, he escaped, along with 3 women he married. It wasn't out of love. The marriage was arranged by the clan. None of them had a choice in it. But once they were free, Tengen made a vow. He told them to forget every rule they'd ever learned, that their lives and safety would always come before duty or honor. He didn't care about missions or glory. He just wanted them to survive. During the Entertainment District mission, when his wives stopped responding, Tengen lost control. He broke into the Butterfly Mansion and dragged people into his search operation. And that's how much he cared. When he nearly died fighting Gyutaro, we saw the truth of their bond. The 3 wives clung to him, sobbing, refusing to let go. It wasn't an obligation anymore, it was love. What started as a forced arrangement turned into something real. Loyalty, care, and shared freedom. They didn't fall in love because they were told to. They fell in love because, for the first time, they had the choice. The most selfish relationship in Demon Slayer, built from duty and control, ended up being one of the healthiest. Giyu and Shinobu. Giyu and Shinobu's love story only works because it never had to face reality. It died, while it was still perfect. In truth, their bond was barely there. When Shinobu was about to kill Nezuko, Giyu stopped her. She tried to tease him, saying everyone hated him, then immediately admitted it wasn't true. It wasn't romance, it was tension that makes you wonder if something more could have been there. Then came episode 18. Under the moonlight, Shinobu said, "The moon is beautiful, isn't it?" In Japanese culture, that's a poetic way of saying, "I love you." If that line really was her hidden confession, it ended there. It was never developed later on, and that's what made it perfect. From Giyu's flashbacks, we know he was a man detached from the world, quiet, burdened, and emotionally sealed off. He wasn't looking for family or affection. He lived out of duty, not desire. So maybe Shinobu never tried to open that door because she knew that, because some loves aren't meant to bloom. Aoi and Inosuke. The only relationship that makes sense, and doesn't at the same time. The definition of opposites attract. Aoi didn't like Inosuke much when they first met at the Butterfly Mansion. She found him loud, reckless, and endlessly frustrating. And Inosuke, being Inosuke, didn't notice or care. But somewhere along the way, something changed. We didn't see many moments between them, but little by little, Aoi started to soften. Near the end of the series, there's that small but perfect scene. Inosuke sneaks into the kitchen, stealing food like he always does. Aoi catches him, scolds him a bit, and instead of yelling, she hands him a tray of food. And for the first time, the wild, pretty boar boy blushes. There's no official moment that says they fell in love, but in the epilogue, we see a descendant who looks suspiciously like Inosuke and says he wants to live alone in the mountains. Sanemi and Kanae. Unlike most couples on this list, there were no hints, no secret symbols, and no hidden confirmations. In fact, there's almost nothing in canon that connects Sanemi and Kanae except one small, fleeting moment. In chapter 168, during Sanemi's flashbacks, there's a scene where he's screaming at Kage Aobiyashiki in front of all the Hashira. And in that brief heated moment, Kanae stands beside him, her hand gently touching his. That's all it took for fans to start building the story. Some saw it as a quiet connection. The fierce, angry wind Hashira finding balance in the calm, gentle flower Hashira. Others imagined it as a what could have been love story, and ended the day Doma took Kanae's life. Ruka and Shinjuro Rengoku. The strongest love in the entire series. So strong it made one Hashira completely useless, and another Hashira die. Ruka was the wife of Shinjuro and mother of Kyojuro and Senjuro. We barely saw her in the story. She had already passed away, but her presence shaped everything that came after. Shinjuro, the former flame Hashira, loved her more than life itself, and when she died, he fell apart. He abandoned the core, drowned himself in alcohol, and let the Rengoku family legacy, a bloodline of demon slayers stretching generations, crumble in his hands. That's how much he loved her. Her death burned the fire out of him completely, but that same love sparked something else in Kyojuro. Her final words to her son, to protect the weak and live with pride, became his purpose. Even without training, without a teacher, he pushed himself beyond exhaustion to honor her. That kind of devotion nerfed him. He never mastered flame breathing fully, but it also made him unbreakable in spirit. And maybe that's the saddest irony of all. Her love made one man give up and another fight until his last breath. Because if Kyojuro had finished his training, if Shinjuro had stayed strong, maybe Akaza would have been the one who died that night. And if Akaza died that day, we wouldn't have had a chance to see one of the most secret forms of Muzan that paints the exact picture of his hidden personality.